This is the Lifestyle Business Podcast, Episode 1.
Hey, this is Ian on 101 FM W Balla. I'm here to spin you a little digital productivity record, so sit back, relax, and get to work.
Man, I'm dying over here with all these ideas. I got nobody to talk to about them. Give me a call.
Hey everybody, this is Dan, reporting to you from some unnamed tropical island in the Pacific.
I think when we pulled this episode together, it's really important for me, at least, to convey to everybody how many times we've failed over the last couple of years.
But don't take our word for it. We're not experts. We're just dudes with a business. Well, John, I got an idea about this. Steve and I are, what's your name?
Jesus Christ.
I often joke that I can't afford to have a wife because then I'd be a minority partner. I'd only have 25% because I'm already married to Ian.
Yeah, I think you're an exceptional example of somebody like this in that you kind of like do this thing every couple of years where you like shed your skin. I don't know if you would agree with this. I'm not even sure I've shared this with you. So
It's getting real, man. It's getting real.
Let me give you a little quick tip, dear audience, about what Ian just said. I can't remember the last time he said something like that where he wasn't right. And the first few times he ever said that to me, he got me out of a job and into a business that did $90,000 last month.
baller.
Hola! All right, Ian, thanks for joining me today. It is always a pleasure. Today we're going to play you one of our favorite songs. This song reminds me of Bali, man, and I got to get back there. When are we going to get back to Bali?
Pretty soon, man. See you there.
All right, thanks everybody for listening. If you want to do us a big favor and yourself a big favor, make a cold call this week. Try to cut a deal. Hey, podcast listener, even if you are alone in your entrepreneurial pursuit, know that today, right now in your earbuds, you are joined by thousands of entrepreneurs all around the globe seeking to do the same thing you are. If you want to know more about this program or this podcast or want to get barraged by a lot of annoying pop-ups, check out our website, lifestylebusinesspodcast.com. Yeah, buddy. It's Thursday. That means it's time for another Lifestyle Business Podcast. We believe building a business is the ideal way to create more freedom and opportunity for you, your family, and those around you. Hopefully, we've helped do a few of those for you. This is our 100th episode, and today I am joined by my captain, my co-host, a man who puts the dip into stick. What's up, brother?
Man, these are always positive. The 100th episode, you got to make fun of me now?
It's kind of funny, man. I don't know. We are rejoining. I don't know if you go back to like episode number 16, in that range somewhere. I was always in this crazy cafe in Manila where the cappuccino machine is going off. Well, I'm there today. I'm reliving the glory days in Manila, the early days, and we're absolutely all switched up. You're up basically 3 hours before you've ever woken up before.
Yeah, we're staying close to our roots, man. I like it that you're in that cafe again. That's a fun cafe. What is it, Caffeina?
Caffeina. If you guys stick around to the end of the show, we'll share with you a super useful tool for successful product launches. First, the shouts. Bryce from SD, 5 stars, says, congrats on the 100th episode. Sitting in the traffic has never been so legit. Balla. Booyah to the ballers, 5-star. Power Life says, you guys mix the crazy stuff with the valuable stuff. That's the same thing that Ian's girlfriend says about him. Thanks, Power Life. And finally, putting it into action. We got a review that says, I was building WordPress sites for friends and decided to make a business out of it. A couple months ago, I would have spent weeks getting my site set up before selling anything, but after listening to the LBP, I started cold calling people, and now I have more business than I can handle. I like that.
That's awesome.
Thanks to Dan and Ian for making mybizcoaching.com make it rain in San Diego. All right, Ian, I got a question for you from listener Dave. He's asking about a hard goods product business, and you're the guy.
Yes.
You're the guy to talk about hard goods product. He's developing a slim protective case for the Amazon Kindle.
I think this is a great idea, Dave. I have broken a Kindle before. You've broken a Kindle before too, right?
Yes, sir.
And whenever I'm traveling, this is a huge problem, and these soft cases don't really solve it. So what Dave is doing is he's going around to different machine shops trying to get a prototype made. He's had a prototype made, and now he's finding out that there's some limitations with that supplier. So I think, Dave, what you have to do is you have to know exactly how this product is going to get manufactured. It sounds like you're doing some experimenting maybe with sheet metal. I don't know if that's going to be the end material that you're going to use, but you have to conceptualize what that end material is going to be and how exactly it's going to be manufactured. I think that's going to help you a lot when you try and seek out your final manufacturer for production. You also have to figure out how many of these you're going to make. If you're at a machine shop, a lot of machine shops are short run. You can find long run production machine shops, but a lot of times they're short run. But also, again, it depends on manufacturing process. So are you stamping this thing? Are you molding this thing? Are you CNCing this thing? You've got to understand how to make it. And to understand how to make it, Dave, we are starting a product mastermind group in the DC. And so that'll be going off pretty soon. I think Alyssa is setting up the dates for that.
Ooh.
But if you want to get in touch with us through that, that's in the DC. And then also, if you want to get in touch with Dave, email us and we'll hook you up with them.
Yeah, it's painful to hear your answer, Ian, because I think Dave's in like one of these tough spots. Like we've been in this spot, with, especially with like, in particular with the injection molded stuff, where it's like, you know, I guess like the more advanced companies, like they know kind of like they have their specs spot on, or they have a bit more of a track record. So the mold makers are willing to sort of go back and forth a little bit. But when you're a startup, that kind of stuff's tough. And I don't think we have a really clear idea. So definitely if you can help Dave out, or we'll try to connect some people. But it's a great question, and it's a tough one to answer with a home run answer. Do you think that's true, Ian?
Yeah, I think this stuff comes with experience. I mean, we're starting to turn some corners with that. But I mean, especially I've made so many mistakes manufacturing things, not knowing exactly what materials to use and things like that. And it's just years and years of practice and knowledge that gets you there. So I think hooking up Dave with some guys that have been in the game for a while is probably the best answer to that.
Boom. Sean writes us from North Carolina, which is a very fine state. He says, this summer my wife and I will be quitting our very well-paying corporate job that she hates in order to leave the huge city and spend more time with family. And Sean just wants to give us encouragement and say, just because everybody doesn't want to run around to all these crazy backwater places around the planet and sit on tropical islands, it doesn't mean that the message can't apply to a broader audience who has different lifestyle goals. Abso-freaking-lutely, Sean. Good luck with the startup, and good luck with spending more time with the family in NC. That sounds good to me, too. On Facebook this week, we got over 400 fans. Both Miroslav, I believe that's how you say it, and the AdSense Flippers suggested that we get indulgent in the meat and potatoes. Well, we can oblige. Let's get moving on to the meat and potatoes. We're going to talk about things that we would do differently.
Yeah, we sat around for quite a while trying to figure out what we're going to do for our 100th episode, and that was just way too much pressure.
Yeah, so
to come up with something good. So here we are.
The answer is stay up really late, wake up really early, and not do anything special. Again, hey, that's the whole thing. You know, what was that one tip we had, whereas every day that you think was going to be like the turning point for your business just turned out to be Wednesday?
Yeah.
And it's like, you always think it's like, well, when, you know, Cat Fancy just features our cat furniture, it's like we're just going to be sitting there freaking paying off that Porsche loan, you know? Like, no, it's just like just another day at the office, just another bunch of customers that didn't get their shipments. And this again, sir, is another Wednesday. So let's just talk a little bit about the numbers. So let's look back at the retrospective. It was mid-2009 when this podcast first got off the ground. Man, things were so different back then. We had one employee. We had a few Filipinos ripping us off. Nothing against Filipinos. It was more against us. But, I mean, they were like triple timing us on Odesk or whatever. I don't know what platform it was back then. We were probably doing about $30K in revenue a month, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Makes about sense. We had about one or two mini companies, one or two e-commerce sites. And we had a very sheepish approach to the podcast.
And I was drinking during the podcast back in those days.
That's just your excuse.
I'm not proud of it.
Fast forward to early 2012, where we sit today. I don't know. Is that 1,000 days later? It's
almost, yeah.
2.5 years later.
Yep.
Following our 1,000-day principle, we're at 13 employees ish, depending on how you count, between 10 and 13.
Correct.
Our Filipinos are amazing and dedicated and talented and well paid. We're doing 130K plus a month.
Yeah, we're about at that point.
We'll probably hit 2 million this year. Hopefully we'll hit 2 million this year. And how many mini companies would you say we got going on now? Maybe 9, 10, something?
Yeah, we've got quite a few now. Most of them have built on those first couple that we had, but now we've just got more niche sites and things like that.
Well, so there's all these things that have happened, and we've been working hard, working smart every day, and all this stuff. But if there's two things that I could sort of pull out of what's happened here, I would say these two things. Number one is shit takes forever. It just takes forever to get stuff done. And if you're willing to hustle for 1,000 days and work full time at your business for 1,000 days, and hey, if you can't work full time, that's great. You got other priorities for whatever reason, whether you can control them or you can't. But if
just or you could just be like us and just have a partner and each of you work half time. And that works out too.
The other thing I would share with you, and I think something that we've learned, Ian, is that sharing is caring. I wish more entrepreneurs would share their journeys, because you don't have to be some big entrepreneurship expert. Like, I know how to do all this stuff. I think when you figure things out, turn around and share them. I mean, if you go back and listen to SEO podcasts from 3 years ago, the information is irrelevant. And
for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, so if in your business you are creating SEO knowledge on a day-to-day basis, turn around and share that with other entrepreneurs. You're going to develop a network. You're going to find yourself having renewed purpose and vigor towards your business and everything. I don't know. I feel like we have just been so enriched because we have tried to help other entrepreneurs without asking for anything in return. Just trying to develop a group of people that had the same interests.
There's no doubt that our business has grown as a whole by doing this podcast, and that's not something that we necessarily I don't really think we thought about that in 2009. Maybe you did. But man, our business has really grown, and our network has really grown in our scope and our ideas and everything, because so many people are involved now. I mean, there's probably 100 people that there's a lot of people that really understand our business.
Well, let me ask you a question on the spot. You've been working so hard now for 2.5 years since we first started, since your voice first sort of became apparent on the internet. I mean, has all the work been worth it to you? Or do you feel like it would have been better if you would have maybe had a little bit more balance, or maybe not been so doggedly focused on growing this business?
No, if anything, I think that I'm glad that we've worked this hard, and I look forward to it for the next 3 years. I mean, it's a way of life for me. So I'm really happy with our progress. And I think, this shit does take forever, but I do think the longer you're in the game, the more experience you have, obviously, and the faster you can make things happen. So, for example, now we've kind of got this platform built up. That's taken 3 years, and we used to talk about platform a lot, not so much now, but I think platform is like, the people that you have in your company, the capabilities that you have, the reach that you have, all the things that you've built up that help run your business. And so now we've got this pretty cool platform, and I think that makes it a lot easier to move around and do things. And so when you have a 3-year platform, maybe it's as big as a basketball. When you have a 6-year platform, maybe it's as big as a blimp or something like that. So that's a bad analogy, but you know what I mean? Like, this platform is getting bigger for us, so it's getting easier to do things.
Yeah, and
so I think the longer we're in the game, it's going to be much more fun.
I hate being a show off, but I think what happens when you start to develop these businesses, you go through this stage where you're just so self-impressed. You kind of look at what's happening and you just can't believe it. And I remember like this, the fact that we're running a startup boot camp this summer is just amazing to me. The fact that we could bring people together in that sort of way, and that people would trust us to do that, and that it could actually change everybody's lives involved. And then you just sent me kind of a curt email a few days ago that I didn't respond to yet. You were like, July X date, let's go to India for 10 days. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm so glad that we're to the point now where we can even entertain such a ridiculous thought. And it's not,
Yeah, we probably won't go, but it's fun.
it's fun. So I don't know. I don't want to dwell on that, but I think it's that email. It's like what that email represents. It was a casual email, the kind that you could just send on a Wednesday morning, and you meant it, and we can do it. And that, to me, is why we put all the work in. Is that, you know, we might not go to India that time, but we've had a lot of Indias in the last 2 years, and there's going to be a lot more. And I think,
and whatever your India is, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be travel.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some things that we would do differently if we could do it all over again, because we're not as smart as we try to sound by editing the podcast heavily. So, the first thing I think, Ian, that we both agreed on was we would try to have more perspective on what it takes to get momentum in a business. I think that we both were more frustrated than we needed to be because we were doing the right things, which is like being smart and working very hard and focused on products and that kind of thing. But even, you know, smart guys with a lot of resources and a lot of luck in life and a lot of favorable positions, it took us so long.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that you do along the way that are compromises that are required. And I see them all the time, and I see successful people doing them. I see people doing remote work arrangements. I see people doing a lot of consulting for their former employers. I see people doing gigs. I see people quitting their jobs and becoming bartenders in order to get more time, maybe the second year of their business. I see people doing things I call straddles, which is pursuing less attractive business models in order to put cash in their bank account. An example of that was I was talking to my friend John today, who happens to be amazing at WordPress. And I said, hey, John, you know, you could set up WordPress sites for people for $1,000 and you could offer all this stuff. And, you know, he's worried about like consulting creep and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, well, you know, in 5 months you could have $10,000 in your bank account. Now I know that doing WordPress consulting isn't maybe the future for you, but imagine what you could do with the 10 grand in that cash flow. And that's what I would call a straddle. And people that are, I mean, and these things are frustrating because you want to have the scalable, awesome business, you know, that brings you Cambodia cash from anywhere on the planet. But it's the straddles, it's the consulting, it's the remote work, it's the gigs, it's the partnerships, it's the BS that gets you there. It's maybe the closing of your office during your lunch break to work on your startup. I mean, it's those little compromises, those little hustles that I see successful people doing. And I think putting that in perspective would have been better for me in retrospect.
We were just talking about people quitting their jobs to like work at restaurants or be bartenders, and I'm kind of fascinated by this idea now. I don't know why I haven't thought about this before, but like how baller is this? Like you're making like 75 G's working as an engineer. You quit your job to go work as a bartender 3 nights a week. You pull in, you know, a couple $100 a night, depending on what city you're in. That's plenty to live on most places, as long as you don't have any debt and things like that. And then you've got like 5 days, 4 days, solid days to work on your business.
Yeah.
How cool is that? I like that idea. I'm going to start promoting that idea. I think that's a great idea. I think most people, including your parents, would probably think that's a huge step backwards, but I promote that idea.
You know, you said earlier in the podcast that this is a way of life for you. And look, if we're gonna all agree communally that this is gonna take 3 years full-time effort, then, you know, I mean, all these kind of half compromise, like I'm going to do something in the evenings and see if it works and test it. I mean, that's really like that ship has sailed, right? I mean, that's not how this stuff works. I mean, if you're not willing to be a bartender, if you're not willing to have a couple arguments with the father-in-law, then it might not happen. And I think, and maybe you're really smart. And I think maybe Ian, it's to our advantage that we're not the sharpest guys in the room.
Agreed.
We're just dumb enough to think that we can do this stuff and we just keep doing it, even though we're getting beat on the head every day. Next point. Location is everything and location is nothing. So,
we used to argue about this quite a bit.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and he was giving me this impassioned speech about if we set up this business in like this X place where we're thinking about setting up business, I'll be there on the ground every day, jamming it out, and like I'll never leave, and I'll do all this stuff. And like I've said that so many times. I think I've given that like I'm gonna be there on the ground speech. Like,
so you recognized it right away. You smelled your own shit right there.
Absolutely, sir. And there's this concept called bench pressing. Like I always say, like you need somebody to sort of just do this heavy lifting in a business. And I think entrepreneurs tend to overestimate what their impact is on a business. It was that great tale of like that we made fun of you last year on the podcast, or I don't know when it was, but when you went back, you left California and the business like jumped 20% the next month and never looked back.
Everybody loosened their tie and they were like, oh man, thank God. And now we can relax and actually do a good job.
Everybody listening to the podcast is like, well, Ian's in San Diego because he's got to hold it down. He's locking it down. He's so responsible over there. And all of a sudden he leaves. And this is this lesson of, sort of over-representing your ability to really bench press things in your business. Forces have a natural rhythm to them. And you can't always, push that around. And so I think, and it's going to be different in every single circumstance, but I think recognizing that and not overemphasizing the value of you being there. I mean, I had that experience here in Manila when I was managing my developers in the office, and it turns out that they were just no more productive, like zero, absolutely nothing. And worse, we were all miserable because we were sitting in this office trying to keep tabs on each other. It was so much better when we just all went back home and chatted on Skype occasionally. Right.
And, I think that this location is everything, location is nothing kind of applies to cash too, or at least startup money. I think cash is everything, but cash is nothing at the same time. I think you can start a business with no money, but I think once your business is running, cash is everything. So I think that kind of applies too. To what we're talking about here.
You'd think after 100 episodes we could come up with cogent talking points, but
yeah.
Number 3, you don't need a VA. Yes, I said it. You don't need a VA.
When did we hire our first VA? I mean, we talked about VAs for a long time.
Hiring VAs has become the number one form of resistance for entrepreneurs. I'm hearing it everywhere. I'm hearing, I need to get a VA for this. I need to get a VA for that. Well, what's your product? Where's your cash flow? What's the scalable process that you're going to plug them into immediately, and they're just going to start doing all the crap that you've been doing? Here's the thing. If you're not up to your friggin' eyeballs in a repeatable, specific, customer-facing process, you don't need a VA. So let's stop talking about it. And the moment that you're ready to hire somebody, you're not going to call them a VA. You're going to call them whatever the hell they're doing. They're customer service. They're a designer that designs a specific thing that you're up to your eyeballs in. You're cash flowing. Your processes are defined. And finally, outsourcing is not a business opportunity. And this is how people present it. And I think we spent the last 2.5 years learning this stupidly simple message. That and it's the whole reason I got on a plane to come to the Philippines in the first place, Ian, was submitting to this resistance. I thought we could just start hiring people until we were blue in the face and we were going to be rich. When I should have just started calling customers until I was blue in the face.
Yeah, we didn't have any work. We just wanted to hire all these people, have them sit around, and then say, "All right, call it a day. We don't have any work."
And it's a really important distinction between work and cash, because everybody's thinking, and that's how people sell outsourcing. It's like, oh, you have all this work. You have all this work. That's not the way you want to think about it. You have cash. You have cash flows that you need people to either manage or to support. Okay? So you've got a particular site that's bringing in $5,000 a month, and it's worth it to you to pay somebody $600 or $1,000 or $1,200 in order to manage the customer support for that cash flow. Period.
Yes.
That's the end of it. The next thing we wish we knew was that we wish we would have paid ourselves more. Well, somebody has changed because you have not paid me a dime. What's going on? Where did this point come from? I definitely didn't write this one.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I look back and what happens with the money that's in your business is it generally gets spent. So you have to take it out, or else it gets eaten back up. And especially in the case of our business, because we have an inventory-based business, and so that money just kind of sits in the bank a lot of times because you're getting ready to buy inventory, you're going through a cycle or something like that, and then you never end up taking the money out. And so one thing that I wish that we did way back when was we just took the money out, we paid ourselves, and then you don't necessarily go and spend that money right away on a Porsche or anything like that. You have it so you can loan it back to the company, but it's actually in your personal bank account. You've taken it out of the company. I think that's really important. Because that money just disappears like it has for us the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
Just gets eaten back up by the company. So I think if I could have done it differently, I would have just paid ourselves more and had it burn a little bit more, and then if we needed to, loan the company back money.
Yeah, buddy, cash is like liquid. If you don't just start building those walls and having a clear idea of where it goes, it'll have its own ideas. And especially when you got 13 hands in the pot. I mean, you got everybody, especially with SaaS applications, they're fantastic businesses to start because I know everybody on our team wants to sign up for 3 new ones every month.
Yeah.
So, the other day I saw you deleting SaaS apps that we've had since 3 years ago.
Oh, and the PayPal. Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Wasn't
and I look
that disgusting? I was pretty embarrassed. Like, what is this one, Dan? Looks like
I'll tell you. You know what SaaS apps we have? Just listen back through the podcast at all the quick tips and count up about 100 of them.
Finally, we wish we would have invested in a better tax guy. I mean, we're kind of these like fast running guys where you just like sort of set up the LLC and you start selling crap, and then maybe you figure it out in the back end, you shoebox it. Well, we wish we wouldn't have shoeboxed it the first year, and we would have stepped up the moment you knew the business was viable.
Yeah.
And got a quality accountant on board. Tell us about what our accountant's been able to do for us.
This year we did pretty well. I mean, in terms of how we ended up in the end of the year. The last couple of years, not so good. I mean, so I wish we would have invested in a good accountant. And I feel like part of that is our learning curve too. I mean, you can't just hire an accountant or a tax accountant and assume that they're going to work everything out for you. You've really got to invest yourself into the process. And so I feel like that's something we've been doing the last couple of years, but it just takes a long time, especially for me to get up to speed on this stuff. So it's taken us a long time to get up to speed on this, several years now. And so the way I look at it is, the first year you're going to actually make some money. It makes sense to get a tax accountant because, our tax accountant wasn't very much this year. I think it was like $2,500. So when you look back at the years at how much money we made, having this guy on board could have really helped us out and kind of massage those numbers so they make sense.
Yeah, and it's tough when, those first few years when we were just really like struggling to pull out salaries for ourselves that made sense. It's tough then to say $2,500. I mean, it's a big number. But what we're looking at now is like that was a little bit penny wise, pound foolish. And we probably should have gotten that great tax advice early on in the game. And like you said, the best point there is really the hands-on stuff. As a universal thing, when you meet entrepreneurs that are at higher levels, they're quite adept at tax issues because it becomes hugely important to your business. And you can't just, mail this stuff into some guy and then have that be it. Alrighty, so real quick, before we sign off on this episode, so I can go to bed and you probably go back to bed for another 3 hours before you go to the office, what are some of the things that you think the next 100 episodes could bring us? What are some things you'd like to see?
First thing, I think we're doing really well with all these little businesses that we have, but I would like to see us get on one main focus in the next 3 years, or the next 2 to 3 years, something that's very disruptive and something that's very large. I think that's what we've been kind of edging for the whole time. We just keep finding these complementary businesses, and it's really fun, and it's really conducive to our lifestyle to do that right now. But I think in the next couple of years we're gonna find one really big disruptive business that takes off big time. So
speaking of disruption, something I think that can help us with that is this year, we want to try to help 1,000 entrepreneurs make those steps to switch from either that's being an employer, a consultant, to running their own scalable lifestyle business. We're doing that through a variety of mediums with our internships, with our private groups, with these startup schools in the summertime, and also with a book that we're coming out with, and with the podcast. So I just think that's just a cool thing to do in life in general. It's super fun to help out entrepreneurs. They're the most passionate, creative group of people that I know of. Way more fun than hanging out with musicians, which is what I thought I wanted to be back in the day. We were swimming in the ocean today, and one of my buddies asked me, well, what do you want to do when you were in college? I wanted to be a rock star, and I'm glad I didn't go for that. We'd also like to help our DC members create an extra $10K in annual income. I think we should, continue to focus on that group of entrepreneurs. I think there's a lot more upside for that, but more learning, improvement in platform. And if any lesson from the last 2.5 years, Ian, is that I don't know how much we can predict what's coming down the pike for us. Just continue to do the good work, focus on the things that I think we can be more deeply invested in. Just keep trucking, man, and maybe make it to India. Who knows? So let's get moving on to the quick tips, tricks, and or funny joke section. Really quick, for the pre-launch over the Tropical MBA, we use Wufoo forms. I know everybody's probably heard Andrew over at Mixergy.com mention Wufoo a trillion times and never even bother to go to the site. Well, when we needed to do a quick, dirty little survey, went over there, signed up for an account, made a beautiful little embeddable form, and it was just awesome, Ian. Basically, everybody that signed up for the pre-interest list, they got to either type in pieces of information, their email, make selections on radio buttons or pull down menus, and then when they hit submit, that just got pumped into a spreadsheet that was extraordinarily useful for me. I pumped it into a mailing list. I could separate out the different groups of people by what dates they were interested in, and then I could just email them. And it was all on Wufoo. It was all free, and it looked great. So I can't recommend that service enough.
Great way to get information from people that come to your site. And absolutely.
Speaking of spending money, one thing that you have inspired in me is that I finally, after much Twitter research and a lot of soul searching, I forked out a ton of money and bought the Dr. Dre Beats Studio Editions. And I gotta say, they're the over-ears, they're the noise canceling. And I tested out a lot of these things that audio snobs say are great, like the Bose and some of these other brands, and I just didn't like anything as much as the Beats. And I know there's a lot of marketing budget worked in there that I'm paying for, but I absolutely love the smiley face EQ, the big bass, the marshmallowy sound. You can just absolutely rock out while you're doing all that hustling. And it's great. And, these headphones, you can actually listen to music at a really nice volume, and it doesn't hurt your ears because the sound is so warm. And with these really audiophile, mid-range kind of headphones, it's just not the same thing. So absolutely am loving the Beats, man, and they couldn't be better for being on an airplane. So
can I make a bet with you?
Just do it.
You know what the bet I'm going to make, right?
Unfortunately, The correlate is that I just bought another pair of sunglasses today. So yes, I do know what the bet's going to be. We know each other way too well, brother. Well, we'll see how long those beats last. Let's just hope the podcast lasts another 100 episodes. Love you, man. See you next week.
Booyah.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. Don't be shy. We've got a mailing list, lifestylebusinesspodcast.com. Go there, get yourself signed up, and we'll keep you up to date on everything